Hey everyone, my name is Sean Arnold and today I'm going to be sharing with you my budget Trickstar Pure build. This build is which no, I'm going to start again. Oh my god, so nervous. Okay. Hey everyone, my name is Sean Arnold and today I'm going to be sharing with you my budget Pure Trickstar build for the September 9th 2018 format. This build which I've made is more intended for local level play. I tried to make this as cheap as possible yet competitively viable. I myself am someone that's trying to get back into the game and playing competitively. However, I didn't want to spend a whole load of money on cards at the moment while I'm just still kind of getting back into it. Because of this version of Trickstars does not have most of their win conditions which I've commonly used, such as the draw and lock combo, firewall, OTK, and I don't have cards such as evenly matched or infinite impertinence or sky striker engage to help improve this deck, because those cards are very expensive. This is more of a balanced version of the deck which focuses on using different forms of beatdown to try to win the game. Through testing I've had some good results with it, I've had some mixed results with it, but for the purposes of the build I think that's a-okay. So let's get into the deck. The first thing we have in the deck is the main engine for Trickstars. We have our 3 Candida, 3 Licorice, 1 Lilybell, 3 Light Stage, and 3 Reincarnation. This is the main engine for Trickstars commonly used by players today. We have Candida for our search, Licorice for special summoning and burn, Lilybell for recycling, and then we have Light Stage for searching and also back row removal, and Reincarnation to disrupt our opponent's hand and also do some extra burn damage with Licorice, but also to reincarnate our Trickstars and bring them back to the field for different types of play. Of course, Reincarnation is not as strong without drawing Lockbird, and that is the first thing I'm working towards getting for this build, but like I said, I'm trying to keep this as cheap as possible. To improve consistency with this deck, we have 3 copies of Pot of Desires and 2 copies of Terraforming. I personally don't really like Pot of Desires, but I always want to see this in my opening hand, so I'm running 3 copies of it. I ideally don't want to use this 3 times in the duel, but I just try to play around that, and of course 2 copies of Terraforming to search out our field spell. We also have 2 copies of Scapegoat, which isn't necessarily part of the main engine for the deck, but it does give us some utility in the form of our link box by using things like Link Spider and Link Karibo to do things such as the Well Chalice combo to get a +1 and some removal, get out Nightmare Griffin or Cerberus if I want to deal with back row or monster in the main monster zones, and then even go into things like Trispania to get rid of back row, or Trigate if possible to get some negation on board, or get a beat stick out like Decode Talker or Power Code Talker to do some more damage on board. Don't really often use Topologic Bomber Dragon, but I've put it in there nonetheless. Now, the biggest weakness of Trickstars is of course they do a lot of searching, and they are very susceptible to things like Ash and Blossom and also other people's hand traps like Ghost Ogre or Draw Luckbird. So I built this deck with the mind of when I'm starting off a game, I'm trying to assume that I'm going to go second, and then when I know I'm going to go first, I'm going to bring in some trap cards to kind of set up a board, which I think is more powerful for this deck. For going second, I've got some hand traps here to support me. We have Cyframe Gamma, which is there to counter any hand traps my opponent may use on their first turn or so, and Effect Veiler to negate monsters on the field. Both are very good. Not as good as other hand traps, but still they're alright. Plus they're light monsters which has some synergy later on. Then we have 2 copies of DD Crow to provide some graveyard destruction. I like disrupting my opponent's grave in this day and age. I think it's definitely something nice to do, and to help with that for going second, when I come to my second turn, I have Monster Reborn to maybe steal one of my opponent's monsters, or even bring back my own for versatility, and Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is currently one of my favourite cards right now because it does counter hand traps, and when I'm setting up my board, I really want to make sure that Candida goes off without being negated, so I'm going to keep on trying to bait out my opponent with Pot of Desires, Terraforming, Light Stage, and whatever I can, so that I can get my negations out first and protect Candida at all costs, because if you lose Candida, you're losing your normal summon as well, and that could really hurt this deck. Now for going second, with this build, we also need a bit of power to break my opponent's board, so we have quite power in a variety of ways here. We have 1 copy of Cyber Dragon in order to go for Mega Fleet. We have 3 copies of Honest. Honest is really fun to play with Trickstars because they're quite weak. and this kind of solves that problem not always, but it helps out quite a bit for getting over opponents' big monsters, and also really puts damage on the board. 2 Honest can be kind of like using 2 copies of Limiter Removal for this deck, so you can kind of hit the game quite easily. And also we have 2 copies of Eater of Millions for breaking opponents' boards, along with 1 Humongous. Humongous obviously should be Gamma Seal, and if you have Gamma Seal, use Gamma Seal instead. But Humongous, I found that any situation which Gamma Seal would have been useful, Humongous would have worked just as well, because the extra 200 attack didn't make a difference. So I'm fine with using Humongous, and it's a lot cheaper than Gamma Seal. And of course also Dark Hole to get rid of my opponent's monsters. Now for the side deck, the main idea with the side deck is when I know I'm going first, I want to bring in these 9 trap cards here. I want to take out the Gamma Engine, the Effect Veilers, and the DD Crow, take out these 9 cards and put in these 9 cards, because I frankly think these 9 cards get a lot of more mileage out of them than these cards do. So having Torrential Tribute to break an opponent's board, Lost Wind is one of my favourite cards. Even though it's a targeted effect, I think this is a lot better than Effect Veiler in my opinion, even though it's a bit slower than Effect Veiler. It not only negates a monster's effect, but it negates it permanently while it's on the field. In addition to that, it also halves an opponent's attack, so it helps your Trickstars get over them because they're so kind of weak in their attack strengths. Lost Wind synergizes really well with them, and I would rather main this, but because of the format we are in and it's so fast, Effect Veiler just has that advantage of being able to be used on a first turn as opposed to a trap card. And then of course we have Solemn Strike because it's so versatile. Like I said, I tend to bring these in as opposed to these hand traps for when I know I can get the first turn. Then we have a bit of rogue options. I have 3 copies of Twin Twister and 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier, just because it's a local level play. I'm expecting kind of rogue style decks there as well. So for Dimensional Barrier to shut down anything that's not a Link monster based deck, and also Twin Twister to deal with back row or pendulums if I need to do so. So this is my budget Trickstar build. Later throughout this week, I'm going to be uploading some videos on me testing this to share with this, but if you guys have any suggestions on what I should be buying next, please feel free to share with that, and if you have any other opinions, please feel free to share. Thank you for watching and take care.